Hello there, and welcome to another edition of the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washut. Later, we'll be joined by Abby Barmore as a special spring preview show. And I will say, full disclosure, guys, I'm going out of town on vacation. And so I'm expecting major news to happen because the last two times I've been out of town on a family vacation, Trev Alberts left for Texas A&M. And Evan Cooper resigned on Friday, July 5th at 4:30 p.m.
Robin will have it covered. I will if I'm not taking a nap.
Don't worry.
I will be fully connected.
Okay.
The ability to do a live show would be hard because I'm not going to bring my equipment to do a live show. I would.
We'll be okay. We'll make it happen.
Yeah. It's interesting that you're sort of anticipating
It's like clockwork.
So anyway,
okay, I'm not going to play.
Yeah,
that
don't
game.
even throw it out there.
No,
Don't put it in the universe.
yeah, we had Trev Alberts on this show a year ago at this very time, right before the women's basketball tournament, when the Nebraska women's team ended up losing to Iowa in the finals. Days after that game against Iowa, he left for A&M.
That's right. Unexpectedly. Did anybody?
That was
remember,
wild.
Do you remember anybody?
No.
It seemed like nobody saw it coming. Surprised everybody.
I will say, though, I asked him, because he missed the early, are you going to be down at the women's Big Ten games? And he said he had something else going on, and that was the A&M interview.
He sure did.
Then I think he made it to the championship game. But let's not even think about that, as a lot has happened in the last year. And guys, I want to hit on spring football. We're going to preview spring practice, and it's going to be different. There's not a traditional red-white spring game. We will have media access and some of the things like normal, but we're transitioning to this 105-man roster era. There are 16 transfer portal players that have joined the team on campus. That is the most ever in a spring that have joined the team, on top of, I believe, 13 of the 20 or 12 of the 20 high school recruits. So there's a lot of new blood, a lot of new angles, new coordinators, new assistant coach hires, to really kind of dive into this spring.
Mm-hmm. And some returners that are very good storylines. I mean, I always talk about Heinrich Harburg as a very compelling storyline.
For sure.
Where I believe this is the start of his ascension to stardom as a tight end. There's the Dylan Raiola.
Yeah.
The Dylan Raiola kind of now established. Now he's really established as a leader. Rookie quarterback, he was a leader, but it's now much more established. He's the starter. And then, of course, you always have the offensive line discussion. And others. There's a ton, Robin. Yeah. There's a ton. I didn't even mention the receiver position.
Yeah, there are a ton. You could go on for a long time of interesting storylines here. But for me, it starts with Dylan Raiola. I mean, the fact that he is going into year two, he's going to have, like you said, the title of this being his team. He is the face of the program, the leader, of Nebraska football this season. And I was going to have an entire offseason working with Dana Holgorsen, as opposed to a couple weeks, basically having to hit the ground running late last year. This is going to, I think, be a much more intriguing developmental part of just where that Holgorsen Raiola combination, how that can grow over the offseason, and how far they can take this offense, and what types of different things can you do with more comfort and familiarity, both between player and coach and vice versa.
I just thought of this. This will be the first spring that we've had. We had 3 straight springs where the quarterback position wasn't established. Last year wasn't established. The year before was not established.
What was it the year before?
Jeff Sims.
Yeah.
And then you had Chubba Purdy, you had Casey Thompson, and Logan Smothers all on campus. You had 4 quarterbacks on campus at that point that had started Division I games.
By the end of the spring, Sims was established.
Yeah, they didn't even, it was just Sims. It was like, but it was weird. It felt forced in Matt Rule's first spring.
It did.
And then the year before that, Casey Thompson came.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And Adrian Martinez had transferred. And I still don't even know if Frost wanted to part ways with Adrian Martinez. I think he felt like he had to, just to change things up, because Adrian was a better quarterback than what they traded for.
I don't disagree. Keep the discussion on the
currency, but yeah, this the establishment of having a quarterback. We haven't seen that at Nebraska since the 21 season.
Right, and then the question too is that there's guys, there's kind of a battle for top backup, right? Which is always somewhat compelling. Robin, I've substituted the word compelling for interesting.
Good.
Yeah.
I've already used interesting, so I've cashed out on that one.
Yeah. Yeah, you've cashed out. So what Sean is sort of he's sort of the agent for Jalen Gramstad.
Mm-hmm.
So Sean will go with Gramstad as a top backup. Marcus Davila is in that conversation, redshirt freshman transfer from Purdue. And then there's TJ Lateef. I would, one of those guys would emerge, right?
I would probably lean towards Gramstad as well, just because of his experience.
Sean's influence.
And, well, I mean, you think about it.
6-year senior.
He's the only one that's been here. I mean, Luke Longwall has, but, I guess he's the one guy that probably understands the offense as much, maybe even more
And
so than Dylan does.
Does Longville survive the 105 roster perch?
Yeah. So,
I mean, there's some of that, too.
I think he's kind of the obvious choice right now. And then maybe one of those young guys like Davila or Lateef pass him up, but we just don't know where they stand right now. So he's the one known commodity in that room that makes him, I think, the obvious number 2. But we'll see how that develops over the offseason.
Should we skip down to running back?
Well, we're going to do an offensive segment. So don't just go through my whole second segment in segment 1. We're talking big picture, as Andy Kendi likes to say on Channel 7. Big picture.
Okay.
We're not delving into specific offense yet. We'll do that next
We
segment.
can talk about Jamarian Parker next segment.
I mean, the coordinator perspective, we got 3 new coordinators.
Yeah.
7 new assistant coaches, an entire brand new scouting and personnel department approach, a brand new general manager.
God.
You hate to use the words, but it feels like a what?
A reset. I don't, Robin, can Matt Rule utter that word at a podium? Guys, this is a reset.
Well, when you think about since the day he arrived, it's all been about year 3. This is when we make the jump. And now we're going into year 3 with a massive reset, at least on the coaching staff front and from a roster standpoint too. They're losing a lot, especially on the defensive side of the ball, defensive line. So, I mean, you don't want to say that because that's discouraging. That, kind of lowers expectations and sets you up for a subpar year when this is supposed to be the year where it really takes off and Nebraska gets it back into being a legitimate Big Ten contender. But right now, with so much newness, with so much turnover, both from the staff and the roster, it's hard not to think that way.
Right. I wrote a column about it. I think I just went over people's heads. I just don't think you can think in terms of reset.
Mm-mm.
You laid it out really well, Rob. I mean, Rule always talks about year 3 at Temple, year 3 at Baylor. Those were the years.
Okay.
But what he's done is it's like a reset.
How about a year 3 upgrade?
Yeah, maybe reset's not the right word. Maybe it's
upgrade.
Okay,
a revamp.
And he's got a boss here. Let's call this
That's
what
too
it
close
is.
to reset.
He's got a
boss. I'll take
Upgrade.
upgrade.
He's got a boss now that is not going to pinch pennies. And Troy Dannon has said on record, I will give you what you need to win. And the salaries for the assistant coaches, first of all, there's 13 now instead of 10. The salary pool, not counting the strength coach, is $8.75 million. Matt Rule's original contract was for $7 million for assistant pool. So they've been a lot more aggressive. And I think Dannon is, or where Albert's, for whatever reason, kind of was operating the budget like it was 1987. And
he was very thrifty.
He was a good steward.
Steward of good
He
faith.
said that all the time. He Alberts brought the word steward in vogue here. He said steward all the time.
I never used it until he got here.
Now it was intriguing with Trev. He was very adamant about win-loss record, but he kind of wanted to do it on the
and he was the only coach that would, or AD I've ever seen, that cut down guys' guaranteed deals. That doesn't happen anywhere.
To Frost and Fred.
Where you publicly cut your 2 franchise coaches down like that.
He did. Yeah. It wasn't. I don't know, Robin. How'd Fred feel about it?
Not great, but at the same time, when they made those moves, neither of those coaches had much leverage.
No.
And so it was either, well, do you want to stick around and take a pay cut, or you want to try somewhere else? And so I think that was probably more the situations of both those. But yeah, I mean, we put so much emphasis on win-loss and being competitive, but you try to do it on a budget. That's hard, especially now. You can't operate on a budget anymore. It is about who spends the most is going to compete.
It is, but within reason, right?
Sometimes.
Within
I guess.
reason.
I mean, I don't know. Ohio State had the most expensive rosters
in Oregon,
and look where they were. So I'm saying, money talks more than ever.
It does. It does.
All right. When we come back, let's dive into the offense. I want to talk more offensive major storylines going into spring. Listening here to the HuskerOnline Show. And we're back here on the HuskerOnline Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett talking spring now offensive storylines. But before we get to that, this segment of the HuskerOnline Show is brought to you by BetterHelp. And look, life is busy. You've got a lot going on, stress on your plate with work and family, and could be anything. And sometimes you just need someone to talk to in a private, anonymous setting. Just to get what's on your mind off your chest. And BetterHelp offers that for you. First of all, they have a great way to match you up with the right therapist that fits you. And they're going to find the right person that is going to help you through what you're dealing with. And it's also done on your time. You schedule the appointment, you do it on your computer, your personal device. You don't have to go anywhere. You do it right from your comfort of your home, your car, anywhere. And so they make it easy to get done what you want to get done. We've got a great deal as well. If you've never tried BetterHelp, go to their website, betterhelp.com/Husker, and they're going to give you 10% off that first month. That's betterhelp.com/Husker to get 10% off your first month of BetterHelp. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring us here on the HuskerOnline Show. Okay, let's get into offensive storylines for Nebraska. We mentioned Dylan and the backup quarterback. I want to get to the running back.
Okay.
Because I do think we know Emmett Johnson. Look, there's two things I want to know about running back moving into this year. Number one, can Emmett Johnson move up from that 13 carry a game guy to 18? And that's a significant jump to be that level of a back. And number two, who is really the number two? Is it Mekhi Nelson? Is it Quentin Ives? Is it Jamarian Parker? Is it Connor Booth? Is it Kenneth Williams? What does the number two running back situation look like at the end of the spring?
I mean, I don't want to say I don't have any earthly idea, but I would say it's either Ives or Nelson. Jamarian Parker, you just have to see what his conditioning, what his body looks like. And in the Big Ten, it matters a lot. I mean, think about the great running backs you've seen in the Big Ten. What did Judkins look like? What did Travion Henderson look like?
Like first round picks.
What did Corum look like? I mean, those were men.
Either of the Penn State backs.
Those are grown men. That's what you need to find. I think Emmett Johnson's that guy, but we don't know beyond that what they have. We don't. Quentin Ives has never been pressed into duty. He's never had to respond on 3rd and 3 with a game on the line. Never been in that position.
Yeah, he played in the bowl game, which was encouraging. Yeah, he scored a touchdown. So, and I know that Matt Rule had gone out of his way to mention him. Maybe he was just trying to motivate him and get him going a little bit. But from a public perception, Matt Rule's been high on him for a long time. So maybe this is the year where that takes off now with a year of development under his belt. But honestly, the same thing could be said for Mekhi Nelson. I mean, his name got brought up a lot for a guy who at the beginning of the year, no one really had even heard of before. He's going to have every opportunity to push himself to that number 2 spot.
So this is Emmett's deal, though.
But even then, what has he done to solidify himself as a bell cow running back?
Not really. I mean, he had 900 all-purpose yards.
Yeah, he's had flashes for sure.
They were all-purpose yards. Oh no, you're right. I mean, this is not Burkhead and Amir that you're talking about.
Can Emmett get to 18 average carries a game?
Well,
18 carry average.
Robin saw him in the dunk contest. He was really beefed up. That's what that's about.
That was immediately noticeable.
Right. And by the way, really in the Big Ten Conference, there might be one back a year that averages over 20 carries a game. It's just not happening. They tried doing that with Anthony Grant. You remember when interim head coach Mickey Joseph was here and they beat Indiana and they beat Rutgers and they pounded the hell out of Anthony Grant.
Wore him down.
Never was the same after that.
Wore him down.
You can't overdo it in this league.
Nope, I agree. So it just underscores the importance of having that other guy. Come on, I mean, it's other two. You need 2 or 3 more guys. So that's a great place to start. And I think, Sean, the next conversation is the receiver room, which we didn't talk about not much. The conversation doesn't start with Dane Key now.
Yeah, he's 1A.
Yeah.
Like he's your number one. I would put Dane Key,
And then who?
Isaiah Hunter, and then a combination of Ja'Cory Barney and Cortez Mills. That's my top 4.
Okay. All right.
So
Like
you're going Mills over like Keelan Smith,
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Demetrius Bell,
Yes. Cortez Mills,
Hartley Gilmore.
his
Hartley
background
Gilmore.
coming in as a recruit, as an All-American at the All-American Bowl is far superior than those players you
so
mentioned.
you're putting him over Hartley Gilmore.
I think Hartley Gilmore will play another position. I think he play. It's versatile. I'm saying they'll all play, but Cortez Mills is going to be a dude.
Okay. I mean, they got options.
Did you
They
read
have
Tunnel
options.
Talk?
I did.
I read it.
I just wanted you to elaborate for the show.
The room looks pretty good. The question I have, and we can go into the weeds because we have endless time, is who are the guys who beat man coverage? That became the issue last year. They didn't have the guys who could beat man coverage.
Get off the line of scrimmage.
So did they recruit that? I mean, did they get that out of the transfer portal? I would think an SEC guy like Dane Key can do that, saw it and can do it. Isaiah Hunter is a physical receiver. I would think he's good at it. You saw him at St. Michael's at your night, Sean. He's you saw him, Rob. He's a physical looking receiver. So we'll see what that looks like.
Yeah, Jeremiah Jones is not here, but Mosey's here. That's another guy that I'm interested to watch.
Oh, absolutely. He's a slot guy, right?
As a guy to watch. He can play running back too. But yeah, I think it's a matter of is Janiron Bonner is he going to be in the rotation or just like 3 snaps a game?
Yeah, and can somebody emerge that we're not even thinking about so much, like Quinn Clark or Keelan Smith, or one of those guys? Could they hop in there too? That we don't talk about. You talked about a little bit Demetrius Bell, Robin, on our other show. I thought Bell looked fabulous in the spring game before he got hurt. He was a guy that I just thought, okay, they have one here. And then he blew his kney out.
Jaden Doss will be back at receiver.
Oh, Jaden Doss is going back to receiver.
That's the thought. Yes.
Really? He started at receiver, went to corner, and now is going back to receiver. Well, I liked him. You know that.
But liked him on that context of what the roster looked like then.
Right.
Okay.
I'm going
to skip tight end because we've already hit on that.
Except for Markway. We always forget Max Markway.
But will he be cleared? Yeah. I don't know if he's cleared. Okay. What his level of clearance is going to be. He's had major knee injuries from high school too. But yeah, Mac Markway as a blocker particularly is a name to watch. But on the O-line,
okay,
Latoski's out for the spring. Gunnar Gatula's out for the spring. Corcoran is going to be limited or out for the spring. Prohaska, you would think, is back. I don't know if he's going to be limited or not, but it's not going to be a clear picture other than Pritchett at left tackle, Rocco Spindler at a guard position. We know those 2 guys are locked and loaded, but I'll throw this name out there, Sipple, Sam Sledge as a possible center.
I mean, we've heard behind the scene, off the record stuff that they're getting him ready. They're trying to get him ready. You didn't mention Justin Evans, but did you mention Justin Evans? No. Justin Evans will be a guard too. Guard Justin Evans, guard Rocco Spindler. A tackle will be Elijah Pritchett. You mentioned the other tackles undefined. I think there's some talk of Latovsky. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets at least a look out there. And again, Sledge, you just got to see if he can. I think with Sledge, it's maturity and strength. I mean, is he ready from a strength standpoint? We're talking about the Big Ten. Think about the guys that are lined up over him every week. Not a problem against Akron. Not a problem against Houston Christian. Maybe not a problem against Cincinnati. Gets to be an issue when Michigan
comes. And Michigan State, your first 2 Big Ten games.
Oh God, Michigan State always got dudes up.
But Nebraska, I believe, is the only team of the 18 Big Ten teams that will open this year with 2 straight Big Ten home games. Huge advantage. Huge.
About time.
Because it's a odd number year, so Nebraska gets the 5 home games in the Big Ten, not the 4 like a year ago. And then it just happened to fall where they get back to back.
When's the last time that's happened?
I would have to look back, but it's really rare that the Big Ten alone would just give you 2 straight home games because of the way they balance it up. Yeah. So to get 2 in a row is something you got to take advantage of.
Where's Tyler Knack fit in this offensive line conversation?
Well, he got hurt again. He got hurt last year. So what's he like off his injury? That's the other real question about Tyler Knack. Is he a depth guy or could he contend? But yeah, the right tackle is probably the biggest. I'm not worried about guard or center. They got the guys.
I'm not either.
Yeah. So, okay, let's hypothetical. It doesn't work the way it potentially could with Sam Sledge. What if he's not ready? Does Evans just by default fall into center?
I don't know.
Corcoran. How about Corcoran?
No, I don't. Robin, he's an option. I don't think it's by default from what I've heard.
Okay.
They don't. I mean, he's got a center of the ball. I mean, and
he's going into his third year, Sam Sledge.
Sam is.
So he should be ready. You'd think. 2 years of development.
Yeah. Robin, now we're older. It used to be 3 or 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
It often was 3 years.
Yeah,
so,
ideally it's 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. That's what we're going to be covering this spring.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get a good read. I would think we'll get a good read on that.
All right. When we come back, let's shift to defense as John Butler has some big questions on that defensive line, but they've got a lot of promise on the back seven. We'll hit on that next. You're listening here to the HuskerOnline Show. And we're back here on the HuskerOnline Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett. Before we get into the defensive storylines, this segment is brought to you by who, Mr. Sipple?
Larson Motors car sales.
Interesting.
Taboo word. No, interesting is a taboo word, not car sales. If you're looking for a new vehicle, how about a new experience at Larson Motors in Nebraska City? It's one of the Midwest's only dealerships with all of the major brands in one locale. Finding your new Chevrolet, GMC, Hummer, Ford, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram never has been easier. How about starting your new experience today at LarsonMotorGroup.com? Go to the website, LarsonMotorGroup.com, or go to the lot, Larson Motors in Nebraska City. Larson Motors, real people,
real deals.
Real
deals. All right. Well, let's get in the defensive storylines because you've got a new secondary coach. You've got a new D-line coach for Nebraska, and Terry Braden and Addison Williams. You've got a new special teams coordinator with the defensive background as well, Mike Eckler, and you've got a new defensive play caller in John Butler, who took over for the bowl game. So there is a lot there.
New outside linebackers.
New outside linebackers coach Phil Simpson, who makes his return back to Nebraska after leaving for a year. But I love the back seven. I think they've got lots of options there, both linebacker and the secondary. I love what they've done with some of the transfer additions, but we still don't really know if they have the beef up front to last a 12-game schedule.
So it's incumbent on these veteran players that they really take a step forward. So you're talking about Elijah Judy, Cam Lenhart. That's who tops the list. Lenhart's a junior now, guys. It's time.
Yeah.
It's time. And Lenhart's got to look at it like, look what we lost. We can't take a step back. Judy's got to be that way too. We lost Ty Robinson and Nash Hutmacher and Jamari Butler, the starting front three. So I think there's a lot on those guys' shoulders, along with Riley Van Poppel. And then the name that's exciting to people in the program, I think, is Keona Davis. Mm-hmm. Those are the guys right there. Now they need supplements. That's not enough. They need supplements.
What do you think Jalen George factors into this?
Sean?
Because, he's one of the oldest guys in that room now.
He is.
He's junior. Only been here a few months, but he's got the experience factor in a room that doesn't have a lot of experience.
We'll hear from Matt Rule on that, but I'm curious his health, where he's at in his first winter and kind of if he's ready to go. But early reports from John Butler were great. His effort level is moving around.
What do you hear about his health?
I don't want to get into it because I don't know, but somebody at least messaged us that he might have got dinged up in winter workouts. Unconfirmed, so I'm not going to report it or say I didn't put in. But that's you wonder where he's at. But I know early on the defensive line there was good reports about Jalen George.
Can't have this conversation without mentioning Williams Ranieri. Yeah. You hope that he becomes
a starter,
a starter, and maybe a guy that gets you 9 sacks.
Yeah.
You guys saw him at St. Michael's. He's very impressive physically. Just exactly what I thought he'd look like. A larger Randy Gregory. Now, I'm not comparing him to Randy Gregory, but he looks like a larger Randy Gregory.
Is his buy-in level there, though? That's the question. Can you get him to believe and to buy in and play to the standard?
Yeah. You don't know. Sean mentioned in a previous show, David Hufkin is in the 300-pound range.
Hello.
Now. That's a hello.
That's Hufkin.
It's a big man.
That's a hello. It is. He looked good at 255. I don't even know what I think about.
I still think he can move to O-line. I feel like that fits his traits better.
Sean, they need him in defensive line.
He meant O-line too for the future. But he redshirted, so he's got 4 more years, and he's already a grown man.
So you're looking for somebody that can supplement those guys I mentioned, Mason Goldman, Sua Lefatu, those type of guys. Can somebody ready?
Yep. The reality is every guy that we've mentioned, Nebraska's counting on taking a jump. Like there's no established, we know what this guy is. We've seen, bits and pieces of Judy and Len Hart and even Van Poppel and Davis to an extent, but none of them are like established. Like we know what we're getting out of this guy every single game because they haven't done it. No. And so that is to me the biggest concern. Like you can make a case for 10 guys in that defensive line room as guys that could be factors or could make a massive jump this offseason. But until we actually see it, defensive line will be as big of a concern, if not the biggest concern on this entire roster, in my opinion.
Gabe Moore is a wild card too, by the way.
What's that?
Gabe Moore.
Right. The Mississippi State
transfer. Can he get in the rotation? I'm not saying he's a starter, but can they get 10 snaps a game from him?
Right. No, Robin, I think is right. It's in my mind, it's the biggest question mark. Sean, I think you're right when you say you like the stock of players at the linebacker and defensive back.
There's a ton of potential. It's just hasn't been realized yet.
Right. The defensive back room is interesting. Damn it.
Cha-ching.
It's a compelling conversation because those guys struggled a bit last year, but a lot of them are back. I mean, you got Singleton back. You almost have to remind yourself Deshaun Singleton's back is a big, strong NFL type safety.
Sierra Wright had great moments. Now, who's the other corner though?
Good question.
I can't see it being Hartzog right now.
What Marquise Buford,
safety.
Oh, are we putting him at safety still?
I still think there's an opportunity for one of the newcomers, Andrew Marshall or Jameer Khan, to push for the corner job.
Okay.
Or Donovan Jones. Donovan Jones too. I mean, go back to the bowl game.
How about Bly Hill?
Bly Hill. Who played corner in the bowl game?
Donovan Jones
and Sierra Wright.
Jeremiah Charles was in the corner rotation last year.
They have guys.
I'm locked into the defensive back competition because of the returning established starters that are back and the veteran presence they have at the top of that depth chart. But then all of these young guys that we just mentioned, that Caleb Benning, Donovan Jones, Amari Sanders, you just go down the list.
Oh yeah.
Jeremiah Charles, Bly Hill. Like there's so many young players that like you could see, just like the defensive line, all those young guys making a case over the course of the spring, through the summer and into fall camp to put themselves firmly in that conversation to where some of these like kind of guys are penciling in, like the returning starters from last year. They're going to have to earn those spots.
Right.
Like nothing will be given to those guys despite the experience that they're bringing to the table.
It's like they're kind of trying to stiff arm those young guys. It's still our secondary.
And that's good. You need as much of that as possible.
Hartzog, Buford, Singleton. Those guys are saying, no, it's still us.
Yep.
But those young guys are saying, no.
Nope, it's our turn.
Right. So, yeah, that's exactly what you want if you're John Butler.
There's that secondary, though. Addison Williams even commented how many bodies he has back there.
He likes it.
I mean,
it's a big list.
Like there's more people in the secondary at Nebraska than on the men's and women's basketball teams at Nebraska combined.
That's wild. Is that true? I also thought
it was 28.
I thought it was notable too that
it was 28 DBs.
The one factor that Addison Williams mentioned about his group was speed. Like he hadn't spent a lot of time with them. He's still getting to know them and kind of what they can and can't do. But the initial first impression that group gave him was the speed of that unit, which I don't know if people always associate that with Nebraska secondary.
Length and speed. He got their catapult numbers and he liked them. Then now the linebacker position, it's not quite as stocked with returners. It's not as stocked with returners, but there's a lot of promise there. Probably starts, I would say, I mean, if you're talking about returners with Javin Wright, right?
Yep.
Javin Wright is a grown man.
Yeah.
I mean, he's probably 24 years old, 23 years old, right? In that range.
Well, and Singleton's a grown man.
Yeah. Now we're talking linebackers now. You saw McCullough walk in to the St. Michael's night. Deshaun McCullough, the transfer. I mean, he looks like a basketball player. I mean, he's 6'5", 6'5",
in the 240s.
He'll be in that rush end equation too. He'll have his hand in the dirt.
Oh, they're going to ask him to affect the quarterback.
Yep.
They're going to move him around. It sounds like. I think you would say he's a jack who will move.
Right.
They'll move him around.
Right.
All right, guys, when we come back, Abby Barmore will join the show. We'll take your questions in the mailbag. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. We're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett, Abby Barmore. Time for the mailbag as we get going here on the special spring football preview show. Abby, where are we starting off?
Okay, first one. Which player on offense and defense does Nebraska need to have a massive spring?
Oh, I'm going to say Ives. I'm going to say Quentin Ives. That you need depth at that running back.
I think Sam Sledge.
Okay.
That's a good one.
From the conversations that
So
we've
two
had
good
about
ones.
center.
Good
Yeah.
one.
Robin?
I'm going to point to one of those other wide receivers, and I'm going to say Cortez Mills. If he has all that potential that Sean is alluding to, and that others that we've heard have said already, then he could be a legitimate X factor in that receiving corps.
You also could say Elijah Pritchett or Rocco Spindler.
Yes.
I mean, you could really say Elijah Pritchett because you want him to be the left tackle.
Yes.
You want him to be all he's cracked up to be. You want him to be better than he was at Alabama. You want him to be the player Alabama thought he was going to be.
On defense,
Okay. Who do they need to have a huge
I'm going to go
spring?
Dwarney.
Who?
Williams Dwarney.
Okay.
Winery,
And I would go Lenhart.
Van Poppel.
Okay. Yeah. All those guys are good. Those are
If those three guys are good, Nebraska's going to be just fine.
Yep.
All right, next question.
Okay. What player's time is now or never?
Oh,
Mm.
God.
Mm.
Okay.
Well, how about Judy?
Yes. Yeah.
The senior member
Yeah.
of the biggest question mark on the roster. They need him to be good. The time is now.
Oh,
like,
God, that's a good
if,
one.
if you're not going to be that guy now, it's clearly never going to happen. So pressure's on, Elijah. Answer the call.
Kind of now or never for Malcolm Hartzog.
Yeah.
I mean, Hartzog has got to stave off young guys. He's
Mhm.
coming off a year where he was vulnerable at times. As you guys know, I really like Malcolm Hartzog as a player. You never worry about him effort wise. He shows up all the time, but it's got to happen for him. He can't be as vulnerable as he was last year.
What about Turner Corcoran and Teddy Prohaska?
Oh,
Like,
it's now or never.
Very much.
well, they're in their last year, but I don't think. I mean, just their window of opportunity to prove that they can play at a high level is not. I mean, they're not going to get a huge window, a huge runway.
Probably
I
not.
mean, beyond this season too. Like, if they have pro aspirations, like they got to start putting something that they can make it through a full season.
Yeah, that's a good way to justify the now or never.
Well, I don't know if this is even fun, but like a guy like Turner Corcoran, if he doesn't like the direction of where it looks for the spring for him, what's to stop a guy like him from going in the portal to make sure he plays for his final year somewhere?
He's got to be on the field again. If you're looking at the next level, like you got to go out there and kind of re-earn some trust in your stock.
Boy, guys are already going in the portal as a not to
But
hijack
people like that, like nothing would stop him because if he knows like he's not in the discussion to play,
into the portal.
he's got a big decision ahead, and there will be a market for linemen. There always is.
Now, that being said, how much does Nebraska had to lean on its offensive line depth? And you got a guy that can play almost every position on the offensive line, a senior. So, like, that's an incredibly valuable piece to have in your room.
Yeah, he's got leverage here.
Next question.
Doesn't he? Doesn't he have leverage?
I
Oh,
think so. I mean, to an
Sean?
extent. To an extent.
I mean, he hasn't played a lot of football in a long time, though.
But he can play those positions, all of them, pretty much.
And
Okay.
Gunnar Gatula coming back to something to watch, like after his shoulder. How do they replace or reinsert him into this thing?
Well, he earned,
Playing time.
yes. He earned a look, a chance. I mean,
He's got
Don't-
some equity.
yeah, a lot of equity.
Okay, next question. Which incoming transfer has the highest expectations heading into the spring?
Dane Key.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Dane Key. He is
Yeah.
your number one wide receiver.
Then I would say after Dane Key, Deshaun McCullough.
Yep.
Then Winery.
The Winery.
Well, I mean, Spindler and Pritchett are obvious.
Yeah,
Like,
those. Oh, they're all. Yeah, They got some guys they need. Well, obviously they're portal guys. They're veteran players. You don't bring them into to be non-factors. All of them are. All of them are critical.
Another one, Kevin Galick.
Yeah, how about that? Yes, the most important position on the roster, as we learned the hard way last year
At St. Michael's when we showed him up on the screen. It was like a huge applause for the long
So
snapper.
funny. The coaches are just like, "Oh boy!"
Like they chuckled. John Butler just laughed. You could just see it on his face. I was like, "Oh boy."
Kevin Galick. I mean, if you're a coach and going on the road to play Ohio State, and you watch practice that week and it was shaky, that's not a good feeling.
Your long snapper looks like a rock skipper.
Yeah, that's a bad feeling. That's a bad feeling.
I mean, that's what it looked like. 10 block kicks.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah,
on some of like John Hall's missed kick against Illinois, it was a bad snap and a bad hold. Like I mean,
The Purdue game when Rule described one of the snaps as being in the ground. It wasn't even a skip. It just went in the water.
I mean, it was like the football was like a puppy on the ground, and they had to like pick it up and scoop it up. I mean, it was just laying there.
Really interesting.
so
analogy.
yes, that might be the answer right there.
Yeah. Kevin Galick
Galick.
Gaelic Is
from
it Gallic or Gaelic?
Yeah, Galick. You have to think.
Never trust Sipple on pronunciation.
Sippo's going with it, baby. All right, next question.
wow.
Okay, next question. Which new coach has the toughest job ahead of him, and which one has the pieces to be great?
Braden has the
Braden.
toughest job.
Braden.
First year, really I'm going to say a first year full-time collegiate coach. He was at Bethune-Cookman. He was at Florida Atlantic in GA type roles, analyst type roles. This is a big job for him. He under probably talked about part of the spring. First kind of newish coach walking into what Robin aptly described as the biggest question mark on the team. Which makes me wonder how much Rule will be with that group. Rule with a background as a D-line coach. I wonder how much Rule will be with
assume quite a bit.
I think so. Yeah.
Well, I think they lost Jamari Butler to the portal, and James Williams followed Tony White. And
Good point.
They had some established pieces there.
I know. If you had Butler and
James
Williams, you'd think a little bit different. You would. It would be much more solid.
Like the Mekhi Bayer loss, I don't really look at that as like they upgraded in a lot of respects.
More of a linebacker.
But I'm talking about just defensive losses, like starters they lost in general because of the coordinator change and NIL market. But Butler's kind of an irreplaceable type of guy.
So
$500,000, right?
Maybe more.
At LSU.
coaches set up for success, I'm going to go Addison Williams because of
you think so?
that room. The veterans they have returning, the young talent they have coming up. He's got more options to work with than any coach on that staff.
The only reason I hesitate a little bit, Rob, is because they struggled last year. They got a lot of the guys back that struggle. I when you look at that chart,
but they have young guys that can replace that.
Right.
Da'Keel Shorts, guys, has a great situation he's walking into. Even though they don't have a lot of proven production, I think the potential is huge there.
Mm-hmm. So the reason I go Williams is just because they do have guys that have been there and done that here. Now, that what they've done has been a little up and down, but you at least have that core, that nucleus of just veteran guys that you know what you got.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas receiver, outside of Dane Key and obviously Ja'Cory Barney, there's not a lot of known commodity there.
No, and I get where you're going, and I like it I also like that defensive backroom from a character standpoint. You have really solid dudes. Marquise Buford is a great character guy. Sierra Wright is a great character guy. Deshaun Singleton, great character guy. Malcolm, great character guy. They have talent, but they're also very reliable guys.
Mm-hmm.
All right, final question, Abby.
Okay, so this spring is not going to end in a traditional game, but they're going to have some contests, some 7-on-7. So which former Husker are you looking forward to watching during the Husker games? They're going to do some skill competitions and stuff.
You know who lives in Omaha? That would be great to get back? Kenny Bell. Put Afro Thunder.
He's still spry. He could do it.
Spry probably go shirtless for the competition.
Mhm.
He,
I mean, remember his like
he used to do interviews without a shirt on a lot.
his Hale varsity cover shoot with the sport coat without the shirt on underneath it.
I imagine he'd be shirtless for this competition.
Brandon Riley's around.
Who are we looking forward to, Abby? We don't know who's coming, so I don't.
So how about we phrase it? Who would you like to see? What former
Yeah.
Husker would you want to see?
Okay, let's do.
None of the '90s guys are going to want. I mean, they're like 50.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
Hey, what about Will Compton? He's already had
Could
a
be
huge
electric.
presence around the program.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
he does the hype videos. Like, just think of the
Oh, yeah.
promotion that just him being there
Oh,
would
yeah.
give them on a national level. So, I mean, there's the value in that. And then, these guys pushing for year 10, let's get it going.
Garrett Nelson's done with
See what you
football.
got.
Get him back out there for fun.
That'd be kind of fun. Who would I look forward to seeing? Randy Gregory. I'd like to see Randy Gregory sprint out.
Do you
there.
think he's set foot in Nebraska for a day since he's been done playing here?
No, which would make it even more
How
interesting.
about Richie?
Richie would be great. That would be incredible.
We were that close to having him on our show. He confirmed to come on the day after the Adam Schefter ESPN
Adam Schefter, yes.
blow up deal.
And then he pulled the plug.
And then his lawyers pulled
The lawyers
the plug.
pulled the plug.
We had like the link out to him.
Hold on. Jamal Lord, anybody? Jamal Lord coming in. That'd be
Yeah.
interesting.
You're getting
That'd be great.
You're getting to that old guy territory because he's my age and I'm an old guy. And so
Yeah, you are.
that'd be dicey.
I mean,
Knees don't do what they used
you
to.
you'll have a hard time getting like a CJ Zimmer to commit to play because he's like 30 now.
Yeah.
I mean, you're I mean, like, how many guys that are like 50 are going to want to play in this?
Some of those guys you see, like Corral, when we saw Corral this summer, he doesn't even look that much different, and he's probably in his own
Cluster
sport.
could play probably. He's in
Yeah.
good shape
You know
still.
who would be the best 7-on-7 guy? Amir Abdullah.
Yeah,
He's still playing in the league.
I know.
yeah, he'd be.
So I'm saying,
incredible.
like, he'd be like
He'd be incredible.
MVP.
And
immediately.
Burkhead would still be good too. He's
Would
not far
Damon
removed.
play?
Damon probably be pretty good. You'd have to worry a little bit about hamstring pull territory.
Little soft tissue issues.
Yeah.
Carricker.
Carrick would be great. I think Robin nailed it. Amir would be the MVP type, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. He'd be unstoppable.
Yeah. It'd be fun to watch him.
Well, we'll have some
Levante.
fun with it.
yeah.
It'll be interesting.
After Sipple buys everything at the garage sale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get your shopping done early.
Yeah.
Christmas shopping.
For some reason, I think about like a hurdle. I'd like to have a hurdle.
Do we know if they're going to be selling hurdles?
I don't know.
What would you do with a hurdle?
Sipple thinks they're going to be selling like shot puts,
Shot put.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. Having your back.
javelins.
It's just whipping around your back.
Tear of the neighborhood.
Hammer throw. All right. When we come back, we'll talk more about April 26th. We're going to also talk about spring games and spring football around the country. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. All right. We're back here. Final segment of the Husker Online Show. It's our spring preview show. As next week will be spring break at the University of Nebraska. But after that, the week of the 24th, the pro day for Nebraska is on the 25th. And then the Huskers will practice 3 or 4 times that week. I think we don't know the schedule, but generally they want to get 4 practices in the first week so they can take the weekend off for Easter later in April. So we're right there. We've got to this point. April 26th, Nebraska's going to do their own spring event. We talked about that. They're not doing a traditional spring game. Robin, a lot of schools around the country have opted out of doing traditional spring games, at least at the notable Power 4 level. Who will not be doing a spring game besides Nebraska?
All right, this list I'm looking at is maybe a week or so old. So if something's happened since then, we'll see. But so we get in the Big Ten, Nebraska, Ohio State, Iowa, Minnesota, and USC have all publicly said no spring game. In the SEC, Alabama, Missouri, Texas, Ole Miss. In the ACC, Florida State, North Carolina State, and in the Big 12, BYU and Arizona. So that's a pretty lengthy list already, and we'll see how much further. There have been some coaches that said we're doing one, and
Dabo.
yeah, Clemson. So I don't know if it's going to be like this massive, everybody's just going to cancel it outright. But clearly, when you have that many notable programs that are saying we're not doing a spring, that's probably going to be inevitable.
It's the way the world's evolving in
Mhm.
college football. So there'll be more that bow out of it. What's your interest level, and who gets your interest in the spring in the Big Ten, Sean?
Indiana, and they're kind of reload.
Yeah. Athlon has Indiana 6th in its power ranking.
I just think they don't. Nebraska doesn't play Indiana.
Nebraska is 7th in in Athlon's power ranking, which isn't a bad number when you consider who's below Nebraska, which is a lot of teams because it's a big league. Iowa's at 8. You guys will be interested in this. Some of these teams that are low. Washington 9, USC 10 in the Athlon power rankings. USC 10, not where their fan base wants. PJ Fleck never gets respect. Minnesota's 11. Michigan State is 12. The fan base can't be happy with that. Rutgers is 13. Wisconsin 14 in the Athlon power rankings. 14. UCLA 15. Then it's not that.
Who's 18?
Northwestern 16. Maryland 17. Purdue's 18. And what Athlon writes is kind of funny to me. It says new coach Barry Odom has a major rebuild ahead after last year's 1-win team returns 1 starter.
1-1.
All right. Well,
which is probably what you want after the debacle.
Right. There's not much you want to bring back.
Not a lot.
The Wisconsin storyline to me is the most fascinating.
They got Maryland's quarterback at Wisconsin, though,
because of the whole Luke Fickell situation. Like, would you say that he's probably got the hottest seat right now going into this coming season?
Yes.
Can they afford
in the Big Ten?
Yeah.
And Lincoln Riley. And Lincoln Riley. But I'd say Fickell more so.
I mean, what was the last time Wisconsin was projected that low? I mean,
not I can't
decades,
remember.
probably.
Yeah, I can't remember.
That's crazy.
Sean alluded to Maryland transfer quarterback Billy Edwards is probably going to have, as Athlon points out, will probably be the quarterback.
I think Nebraska really drew a great road schedule this year because Maryland is decimated. They've lost all their coordinators. They've lost a lot of their players.
4-8 last year. Mike
Locksley just feels like this could be his last year.
Yeah, I still don't look at that as an easy game.
But there'll be a lot of Nebraska fans there. UCLA, a favorable road trip. A lot of Nebraska fans will go out there. Minnesota. Yes, Nebraska has not won in Minneapolis since Mike Riley was the coach, but that's still a trip where a lot of Nebraska fans will go. Penn State is their only really tough road game.
Oh, yeah.
Tough.
And it's real. I mean,
get there in late November.
I said in our chat this week, I only see one game on this schedule where Nebraska to be more than like a 7-point dog, and that's Penn State. They'll be like a 2-touchdown dog out there.
So rugged. Yeah. I don't pick an adjective. It's a really hard trip. In some ways it could be defining. I mean, Robin, you mentioned the question mark of Nebraska. The biggest question mark for Nebraska is up front on defense. What does Penn State do? They just try to bludgeon you.
Oh yeah, especially that time of year too, when it's just about attrition.
November 22nd.
They're going to hammer you.
Yeah, I would. I don't know.
And Nebraska leading up to that game, they're at UCLA. They have a bye. And so, like, that's just a weird, like, body clock situation.
God, yes.
I mean, I get you got the time to recalibrate, but still, that's taxing.
I don't know how you guys think about it. I mean, I've covered this game a long time. And if I don't mind saying stuff like this. If I were a head coach at Nebraska, I would gear kind of my whole life toward we're going to be playing at Penn State on November 22nd, guys. We have to do everything smart. We have to take care of our bodies. We have to train with that November in mind, with that late trip to Penn State in mind. Not overdo it on thinking about Penn State, but just you're going to go face a monster in November on the road.
And
cold weather
might mean something to the head coach too.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
But why is that, babe?
Well, it just so happens that Nebraska head coach Matt Rule played at Penn State.
Yes.
He went in there with Temple and beat him.
And he's friends with Pat Kraft.
The
right?
AD.
The AD. Nebraska, by the way, again, 7th in the Athlon power rankings. This is what they say, and it's very they nailed it. Athlon says the combination of coordinator Dana Holgerson and quarterback Dylan Raiola should lead to a much improved offense in 2025. Yes. The Cornhuskers have a major overhaul ahead on the defensive front.
Yes.
Good. Very well done. They should be better on offense.
Better schemed, better flow. You know, we said this in our show last week, Robin Sipple and I, about Dana Holgerson. You know, he had to kind of work with everybody else's notes. Like he didn't get to put in the lesson plan. Like everybody wrote the notes down and he had to kind of go off their notes to run plays and go with that. Now he's put in the lesson plan.
Yeah, he has. Remember, we talked about January. He's looking forward to January because he's going to get in that meeting room and make it his offense. He didn't say that, but that's essentially what he was doing. He was going to get. He said he was going to. January's going to be big because then we're putting it together in January, and I bet that was. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall in the offensive meeting room in the month of January and February.
And reports are he is up there a lot.
Yeah.
I
He's always
believe it.
up there.
He's a single guy.
Uh-huh.
I mean, he's a grinder.
Yeah.
So I just think that continuity with him is going to do wonders for the offense, but especially Dylan. I mean, just having like some stability there. Just think of how many voices he heard last year with Satterfield, Glenn Thomas, Holgerson, Rule. Just go down the line. I mean, it was like the kind of who knows how many different messages he heard and different advices he got. Now he's got Dana, and Dana's his guy from day one of the offseason all the way to the end of the year.
And he doesn't mince words. And he's very particular about what he wants done. Not that Satterfield wasn't, but I mean, you don't have to pussyfoot around on this conversation. Dana Holgerson's resume as a play caller versus Satterfield is not close. I mean,
And he's not afraid to say things to Dylan Raiola like, "Hey,
oh no,
you need
He's
to
not.
lose some weight."
Right.
Like
and Dylan,
he wants that though.
Dylan, God bless him, will take that coaching. I mean, he'll take any coaching.
You
He
need
wants
to-
to be great.
Yeah, you need to do this different. I mean, he is very blunt and confident in an era where it's hard to be that way because you're afraid that players might transfer.
But I would emphasize that Dylan wants it. He wants to be coached hard.
He's got to be used to that too. I mean, I think
Yeah.
Dom is like
Yeah.
got kid gloves with him.
No,
Like,
Dom doesn't mince words.
yeah. So I mean, that's probably what he thrives on.
Right. Yeah, Dom doesn't
Real
mince
talk.
words.
All right, well, guys, I'm sure we'll redo this show about 4 more times. And
In different forms.
this is the first of 4 preview shows that we'll do from now until Arrowhead.
Hey,
Oh, come on.
we didn't even scratch the surface. There's plenty to talk
Yeah,
about.
there is. There is.
All right, well, thanks again to Abby Barmore, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett. We'll be back later in the week on Friday with another edition of Headlines.